My grandmother paid $30,000 for our family's Europe trip. At the airport, my father looked her in the eye and said, "I forgot your ticket. Just go home." Then he turned toward security like abandoning his mother was a scheduling mistake. Everyone followed him. I didn't. I tore my boarding pass in half, took Grandma's suitcase, and drove her home. 3 weeks later, my parents walked out of the arrivals gate laughing, sunburned, and loaded with shopping bags. Then, my father saw me standing beside a man in a dark coat. His smile vanished, because that man wasn't there to welcome him home. My name is Calliope Bennett. I was 32 then, working as a geriatric nurse and believing I understood what family loyalty looked like. Most Saturdays, I drove to Maryville to see my grandmother, Eleanor. Her house always smelled like coffee, butter, and whatever she had in her old cast-iron skillet. The skillet had belonged to my grandfather, Henry. So had the cracked leather suitcase in the hallway closet. Grandma kept both as if he might walk back through the door and ask where she had put them. Henry had died years earlier. But she still set one coffee cup on the counter before remembering she only needed one. "You get used to being alone," she once told me, smoothing a dish towel over her knee. "You just never get good at it." My father, Michael, was the person everyone trusted to handle practical things: bills, insurance, bank accounts. He spoke in calm sentences and wore confidence like a tailored jacket. After Grandpa died, he slowly became the family decision-maker. My stepmother, Karen, loved polished family photos and expensive vacations. My Aunt Laura carried an old resentment toward Grandma because she believed Dad had always been the favorite. Still, from the outside, we looked close. Thanksgiving dinners, birthday cakes from Walmart, smiling pictures lined across Grandma's mantel. Then, in early September, Dad announced the Europe trip. We were gathered around Grandma's dining table when he stood and raised his glass. 3 weeks, Rome, Florence, Paris, London. 12 people. One unforgettable family experience. Grandma's face changed when he said Paris. Henry had promised to take her there someday. She glanced toward his photograph on the mantel, and for 1 second, she looked 20 years younger. Dad told her the trip would require a $30,000 contribution from her savings. He said it would cover shared transportation, hotels, and the costs of keeping the whole family together. Grandma did not hesitate. "If I wait much longer," she said, "I may never go." She signed the payment confirmation 2 days later. Karen immediately started discussing shopping. Laura asked whether business class upgrades were available. No one asked Grandma how far she could walk or whether she needed help renewing her passport. I watched Dad fold the payment confirmation and slide it into his leather case. He did not let Grandma keep a copy. He only smiled and said he would handle everything. Something about how quickly he put it away bothered me. But he was my father. He had taught me to ride a bike. He had carried boxes into my college dorm and cried at my graduation. So I ignored the feeling. I should have asked to see the booking that night. Grandma started preparing before anyone else. Every morning, she walked to the end of her street and back, gripping her cane in one hand and timing herself with the kitchen clock. She said she did not want to slow us down in Europe. 2 weeks before the flight, she pulled Henry's leather suitcase from the closet. The leather was cracked near the handle, and one corner still had a strip of silver tape. She wiped it clean, folded her clothes in neat rows, and placed a blue scarf on top. "Your grandfather loved this color," she told me. Dad had given her a printed itinerary with city names, hotel dates, and departure times. It looked official, but I noticed there was no confirmation number. "Where is the actual reservation?" I asked. Dad did not look up from his phone. "It's all taken care of." Calliope, I should have pushed harder. On the morning of the trip, the air outside the airport was cold enough to sting. Grandma wore her navy coat and held Henry's suitcase close, like she was carrying part of him with her. Inside, everyone moved fast. Karen adjusted her scarf. Laura checked her luggage tags. Dad repeated the same thing twice. "We cannot miss this flight." Grandma asked where she would be sitting. Karen looked at Dad. Laura looked at her phone. Dad said, "We'll sort it out at the gate. We never made it that far." At the check-in counter, the agent asked for names one by one. Boarding passes printed. Bags disappeared behind the belt. Then she typed Grandma's name. She paused. Typed again. "I'm sorry," she said. "I don't see a reservation for Eleanor Bennett." Grandma opened her document holder and handed over the itinerary. The agent studied it, then looked at Dad. "This is a schedule. It isn't a confirmed ticket." The noise around me faded. Wheels rattled over tile. A baby cried behind us. The fluorescent lights hummed above Grandma's head. Dad checked his watch. He did not step toward the counter. He did not ask about another flight. He did not look surprised. "I forgot your ticket," he said. "Just go home." Grandma's fingers tightened around the plastic holder. "Can you fix it?" she asked quietly. Dad exhaled. "We don't have time. We'll call you from Rome." Karen touched his arm. "We need to go." Laura stared at the floor. No one said they would stay. No one mentioned the $30,000. Grandma closed the holder and slipped it into her purse. Her face stayed still, but her hand shook so hard the zipper clicked against her ring. I looked at my boarding pass. Then I tore it in half. Dad turned sharply. "What are you doing? I'm taking Grandma home." Karen gave a small laugh. "Don't be dramatic." I lifted Henry's suitcase. "This isn't drama. Dad told me I was ruining the trip. Laura said Grandma would be fine." The others drifted toward security until 10 members of my family were walking away from us. Grandma watched them leave. "You didn't have to stay," she whispered. "Yes," I said. I did. As we turned toward the exit, I looked back once. Dad had never spoken to the airline. He had never checked another flight. That was when I knew he had not forgotten anything. The drive home took 40 minutes. Grandma sat beside me with both hands folded over her purse. Henry's suitcase rested in the back seat, every few miles. She reached toward it, then stopped. When we pulled into her driveway, she did not move. "Maybe your father really forgot," she said. Her voice was so small I almost pretended to believe her. Inside, she removed the blue scarf and placed it on Henry's chair. Then she carried a vase of wilted carnations to the sink and trimmed each stem with kitchen scissors. She kept cutting long after there was nothing left to save. That was when I noticed everything. The refrigerator held eggs, milk, and a jar of pickles. The thermostat read 62. A bowl sat beneath the leaking faucet. The porch rail shifted when I touched it. Grandma had once saved nearly $200,000. "Where are your bank statements?" I asked. "Michael gets them," she said. "He says it's safer." The next morning, Patricia Collins came over with banana bread wrapped in foil. She had lived nearby for almost 20 years when Grandma went upstairs. Patricia lowered her voice. "Your father takes her mail every other Tuesday. He empties the box and leaves. I called the bank. But they would not tell me anything without Grandma present." "Good. We would do this the right way." The following afternoon, Grandma wore her navy coat again. The bank manager verified her identity and opened the accounts. Her expression changed before she spoke. 5 years earlier, Grandma's savings had been close to $200,000. Now, it was barely $50,000. She printed the records, payments marked home repairs, medical costs, investments, family support. But the roof still leaked. Insurance had covered Grandma's treatment. No investment account existed. Then I saw the recent withdrawals. $30,000 connected to the Europe trip, $25,000 transferred to Laura, more charges for upgraded seats, hotels, and shopping. Grandma stared at the pages. "I saved that money after Henry died," she whispered. "I skipped vacations. I wore the same winter coat for 15 years. She folded the records twice, on the drive home. She did not cry. That night, she gave me permission to check the old computer in her spare room. The account was in her name. The screen was already logged in. We found messages between Dad, Karen, and Laura. Dad had told them not to buy Grandma a ticket. Karen knew, Laura knew. The itinerary had been created so Grandma would believe everything was handled. One line made my hands go cold. "She won't notice until it's too late." Grandma stood behind me. For the first time since the airport, her hands stopped shaking. The next morning, I called James Walker, an attorney who handled financial abuse involving older adults. He listened without interrupting. Then he said, Do not confront your father. Preserve everything. Let me move first. Over the next 2 weeks, Grandma signed requests, verified records, and reclaimed access to her mail. James filed for emergency protection. The bank restricted new withdrawals. Dad's card stopped working while he was still in Europe. He called me sounding worried, then confused, then angry. "What did you do?" he demanded. I looked across the kitchen at Grandma. She was cutting fresh flowers this time. "Nothing you need to understand yet," I said. James confirmed the family's return date and arranged for a process server to meet us. Grandma refused to come. "I already stood in that airport once waiting for my son to choose me," she said. "I won't do it again." So on the morning they came home, I put on the coat Grandma had given me, picked up the evidence folder, and drove to the airport. James was already waiting. The arrivals hall smelled like burnt coffee and floor cleaner. I stood beneath the flight board with James on my right and a process server a few feet behind us. The sliding doors kept opening, releasing passengers into the terminal. 3 weeks earlier, Grandma had stood in this same building with Henry's suitcase and a ticket that did not exist. Now I was waiting. The flight from London landed on time. Families crowded the railing. Children waved signs. Then my father appeared. He looked rested, tanned, expensive. He pushed 2 new suitcases while Karen carried shopping bags from stores Grandma would never enter because she always said they charged too much for things people did not need. Laura and Robert came out behind them. Dad saw me first. His mouth opened into a smile. Then he noticed James. The smile vanished. "Calliope," he said. "What is this?" The man beside me was James Walker, my grandmother's attorney. James stepped forward. "Michael Bennett." Dad's eyes dropped to the folder in his hand. "I know who you are." James did not react. "I represent Eleanor Bennett regarding suspected financial exploitation and breach of fiduciary duty." Karen's bags stopped swinging. Laura froze. Dad looked at me. "You hired a lawyer, Grandma did." The process server stepped forward and said Dad's full name. Dad raised one hand. "I'm not taking anything." The server calmly explained that the papers had been served according to procedure. Another packet went to Laura. She stared at it as if it might burn her. Karen leaned toward me. "What have you done to this family?" I looked at the bags in her hands. "I stopped you from taking anything else from her." Dad's face reddened. "I managed my mother's finances. She asked me to." James opened his folder. "Your authority has been temporarily suspended. The accounts are protected. You may not make withdrawals, transfers, beneficiary changes, or contact the bank on Mrs. Bennett's behalf." Dad turned toward him. "You can't do that. A judge already did, for 1 second. The only sound was luggage wheels crossing tile." Dad looked back at me. "You turned her against me." "Grandma saw the records. She doesn't understand those accounts. She understood that $200,000 became $50,000. Karen inhaled sharply. Laura looked down. Dad lowered his voice. "That money was being used for the family. It was her money. It would have come to us eventually. There it was, not an apology. Entitlement." James continued. "The civil action seeks approximately $150,000, including the $30,000 connected to this trip and the $25,000 transferred to Laura Mitchell." Robert stepped away from Laura. Only 1 step, but I saw it. Laura went pale. "Mom wanted me to have that." "Did she tell you herself?" Laura said nothing. Dad pointed at me. "You went through private messages. Mrs. Bennett authorized review of an account in her name." James said, "Additional records will be obtained formally." Dad looked toward the exit. He was measuring distances, searching for a way around the moment. I remembered Grandma at the check-in counter, searching every face for one person willing to help her. Nobody had. Dad stepped closer. "You have no idea what you're doing. I know exactly what happened. You're destroying this family." "No." My voice was quieter than his. "The family broke when you left your mother at that counter. People nearby had started looking over." I did not raise my voice. I would not turn Grandma's pain into a public show. "You said you forgot her ticket," I continued. "But you never bought it. You took her money, handed her a fake itinerary, and counted on her being too embarrassed to ask questions." Karen's face tightened. We can discuss this at home. You had 5 years to do that, James said. Instead, privacy was used to hide the transactions. Dad's anger shifted. His shoulders dropped. His voice changed. How much have you seen? That question told me everything. He did not ask how Grandma was. He asked how much evidence we had. I held his gaze. Enough. Cold air rushed through the doors behind him. Dad gripped the papers. You'll regret this. I thought of Grandma trimming dead flowers because she could not bring herself to cry. I already regret trusting you. James touched my elbow, and we walked away. Behind us, Karen demanded answers. Laura began crying. Dad called my name twice. I kept walking. When I reached Grandma's house, she sat at the kitchen table with fresh carnations in a glass jar. I placed a copy of the order before her. She asked one question. Can he touch my money? Now I sat beside her. No. Grandma closed her eyes and breathed out. For the first time in 3 weeks, she looked safe. The case did not end at the airport. It took 8 months. 8 months of meetings, sworn statements, bank reviews, and long afternoons at Grandma's kitchen table while James explained what every new page meant. Dad fought almost everything at first. He claimed the withdrawals were family expenses. He said Grandma had approved them verbally. He even argued that the money would have become part of the family inheritance anyway. The records told a different story. The court permanently revoked his authority over Grandma's finances. He was ordered to repay about $150,000 through a structured plan secured by his assets. Laura had to return the $25,000 she received. The change Dad had made to Grandma's insurance was reversed. Karen was never listed as the person who moved the money, but the messages proved she knew what was happening and benefited from it. That ended any chance she had of pretending she was only an innocent bystander. Grandma changed her estate plan too. Dad and Laura were removed from every position that gave them control. A portion of what remained would eventually support a small scholarship in Grandma and Henry's names. I was not given control of everything either. Grandma chose an independent financial professional, and any large transaction required her direct approval. That way, she said, tapping the new folder. Nobody gets to confuse helping me with owning me. The changes inside her house came slowly. The faucet stopped dripping. The porch rail was repaired. The thermostat moved from 62 to 72. Her refrigerator filled with fresh fruit, good cheese, and the butter she used to call too expensive. Every Friday, she met her friends for breakfast again. She started buying fresh carnations instead of trying to rescue dead ones from the week before. I kept working as a geriatric nurse, but I completed additional training in protecting older adults from financial abuse. I began helping families recognize missing mail, unexplained payments, sudden isolation, and relatives who became angry whenever anyone asked questions. I could not change what happened to Grandma, but I could make sure it taught me something useful. The following fall, I visited her and found Henry's leather suitcase open on the bed. The blue scarf lay neatly on top of 2 boarding passes. One said Eleanor Bennett, the other said Calliope Bennett. Grandma picked up her ticket and studied it for a long moment. This time, she said, smiling, I know my name is on the reservation. Justice did not give her back the years they took, but it gave her back the days they had not reached yet. Real love does not empty someone's bank account and call it help. It does not humiliate them, isolate them, or decide they are too old to know what is being taken. What saved my grandmother was not revenge. It was truth, boundaries, and one person refusing to walk away. If you have ever had to protect someone you love from the very people who should have protected them, share your story in the comments. And if this story stayed with you, share it and subscribe so you do not miss the next one.